Thank you so much for joining us on the Family Business Voice here at Tharawat magazine. We're delighted to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here and following the magazine a long time, and it's great to see its success.
Thank you so much. We're delighted to have you here to talk about your family business, State Gardens, and more specifically within the context of our ESG and sustainability collection. But more about that in a little bit. I like to start these conversations on a personal note. And one of the things I always love to ask people is, what is your earliest memory of your family business?
Great question. The earliest memory I had was when my mom would drive us in to where my father was working at the time, which was in Chelsea, Massachusetts. We're three boys, and she would pile the three of us in the old wood-paneled station wagon and drive us into the plant and visit my dad for lunch. My earliest memories were always watching him actually doing the physical labor of working on the line with the rest of his folks. And he was always struck me as just a bull of a man who was getting his hands dirty every day. And he would not send anyone to do a job unless he had done it already or continued to do it. When I joined, we were in the same facility, and we had about the same number of employees that we had during those memories. And my aunt was always a fixture there as well. My dad and my aunt ran the business after my grandfather started it for decades. And so it really was like, no different than getting everyone together on a Sunday for dinner. It was the same group that you would go visit with, only there was business being done instead of us, sitting around a living room or a kitchen.
I love the story of your family because it feels like every generation has contributed a very pivotal strategic move to getting you from where, you started in the first generation as an immigrant family from Italy, basically, to where you are today, which is just like, it's incredible. Your operations have grown so much. Like, we're talking, I think, 900 employees, I think it's a huge leap even in that amount of time. Could you give us a little bit of an idea when you talk to your brothers today about this, or when you talk to your kids about this, like in your head, were there like these key decisions that every generation took that ultimately were instrumental to get you where you are today? Like, and what are they?
Sure. I think certainly the guts that it took for my grandfather to take whatever savings he had and make a bet on himself was probably the most important decision. And so starting it was one. And then when my dad, in the 1960s, they were redeveloping the area that they were located, they handed him a $15,000 check to vacate the waterfront property that they had, which is now Faneuil Hall Marketplace. And he took that money along with a lot of his savings and reinvested it in a new facility in the late 60s, which is where I remember going and I remember visiting, and where I started in the full-time 1987. And then after that, I think the pivotal thing for our generation was when we realized we needed to expand in order to provide three incomes, three families to sustain. And we invested heavily in acquiring some new businesses. And then we invested heavily getting into this pre-washed salad business, which was in its infancy. And then steering it towards organic, which we thought was, at the time, the next big thing. And we were the first one on the East Coast to really invest heavily in that. And it worked out pretty well.
How, as a family, how did you sort of like go about the governance of it all? Sort of like the part, like the structural part. Like, did you divide and conquer? Like, did someone lead the transformation, or what was your strategy there?
We absolutely divided and conquered. My brothers and I, we have very different personalities, and we all kind of went to what made us most comfortable, which is a good thing. Because it wasn't as if we were all clamoring over the same job. And we gave each other enough space and enough room to make that job their own. So my brother John was always very heavily involved in the plant and the operations. My brother Kevin was heavily involved in the sales. And I was kind of involved in the general direction of where the company was to go. And in order for us to make a move, we would always sit down and say, is this a move that we want to make? And if one of my brothers said, no, this is not the move we want to make, then it was pretty much ruled by being unanimous here. I think if we all went hell-bent on our own direction and our own agenda, it was never going to work. And there were times when I wanted to do something and they said no, or they wanted to do something and I said no. But we respected each other's opinion.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for businesses around you in your industry, but also without, to make sure that they are set up for sustainability? Where do you think the challenges are primarily that, quite frankly, some of this is taking a lot of time, a lot more time than we'd like it to?
I think you're asking companies to get out of their core competency in some respects. And that's hard. Changing is hard. And when you're so used to farming in a certain way, or you're so used to operating your manufacturing facility in a certain way, you have to make sure that, I think the intention is there and the intention is good for a lot of folks. But I also think they need to find a way to continue to balance the concern for the planet with the concern for their own profits. And I think some folks are running into a wall where I can only charge this for my product and no one's going to purchase it for this plus X in order to make it more environmentally friendly or sustainable. And I think the challenge we're seeing for a lot of companies is there is intent. I don't question a lot of the intent. I really don't. But I think when it comes down to, are people going to be willing to pay more for this product or that product to make it more sustainable? And if I'm the first one doing it and my competitors aren't, am I putting myself at a competitive disadvantage? And am I going to be able to sustain the profitability of the company when somebody is undercutting us? So, the change part here has to be measured with the viability of the business once it does make that change. And I think that's where you're really running into it. And I can't speak for Europe because I know what happens here. And, we're a very quarterly driven society. We need to make our numbers every quarter. And if we don't, we're either going to have upset investors, upset customers, or something will break down. So how do we stop looking at a quarterly look and looking at a 5, 10, 15, 20-year look? And that's a question that remains to be seen.
Do you feel that there's a real possibility here that many of the businesses that are going to do well with adhering to sort of like sustainable standards are going to be family owned, or do you feel like it's more of a chance factor?
I think a family business positions itself to think long term. When we're making decisions today, or when my dad was making decisions, it was, okay, we need to make money. We need to show up every day and make money. But it forces you to think further down the road. Is this the direction that I want my kids to go? Is this a place where I want them to be? And now I'm asking those same questions. If my kids truly and my nephews truly want to be in this business, you want to leave them something that they're going to be proud of,
Mm-hmm.
and something that's going to be their, let's call it wow factor,
Mm-hmm.
where, wow, I'm really excited to be involved in this piece.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just the profits. You need to make sure that there's something there that the children have pride in,
Yeah.
and feel valued.